And we are live. Hey guys, welcome to Conscious Parenting. Being a parent is one of the most important roles you will ever have. And our goal on this show is to introduce you to the people and ideas that will help you raise kids who are resilient, who are happy, and who have the skills they need to thrive in their world. The guest that I have today is someone that I am really thrilled to have on because I've always personally believed that coaching is one of the best ways to help kids grow and develop. And our guest tonight it goes by the name Anton Grey, and he is a coach that helps entrepreneurs connect the dots, going from where it is they want to get to where it is they connecting where they want to get to where they currently are. And he's also the author of a book called Mind Reset. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anton Grey. Hey, Anton, thanks for being on the show.
Hi, what's going on, man? Hey, I'm honored to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Great. So, there are a lot of things that you have done. I know you've written books. I know you have a few internet companies that you have going on. I know you mentor and you coach a lot of people. But one of the interesting things that I've heard you refer to when describing yourself is a thought provoker. Why do you call yourself that?
Um, that's a great question, man. I do, and somehow, some way, I've become, I guess, just through my audience, I've been dubbed the mindset mentor, and it's mainly, a goal of mine whenever I speak to people or with people is really just to spark thought. And I call it sparking thought towards what I call PPC. Right. Most people hear that, especially in the digital marketing world, and they think pay per click. But in my world, PPC is progress, possibilities, and change. I feel that if I can spark someone's thought process towards making changes and making progress, even if it's a small amount of progress, then it opens the door to all of the possibilities that lie in their future and that they can actually have. So that's why I focus on the thought process, man. I truly believe that mindset is everything.
Okay, we're going to get a bit into the mind reset and why mindset is everything and how we can begin to apply that to what we do as parents. But in terms of being a thought provoker, one of the reasons why I'm really happy to have you on this show is because a lot of us, we come with preconceived notions about parenting, and many of us have seen that those may not work the way we want them to work. And a lot of times, being able to switch that paradigm um, often takes a lot of thought-provoking questions. So I'm super thrilled for that. But to kick things off, there's an interesting story that I've heard you relate, and I'd love you to share that, about how your dad was your first boss. Tell us a bit about that experience. What has that taught you about what to do and what not to do about parenting? Like, tell us the whole thing.
Man, I absolutely love my dad. My dad was my first boss. As far as parenting, I don't know if his methods are even his methods showed me that parenting is not tried and true, but more trial and error. My dad was a big kid, man. Like he really was a big kid, where I think he got me in more trouble than I got myself in with my mom, just because she'd come home and we'd both be running around the house doing something that we probably shouldn't have been doing. But he taught me what it was to have fun, right? He wasn't always he was strict to a point, and strict in a way that he always challenged me to move past whatever fears I wanted. Whatever fears I had, or any of that. He made me do a lot of stuff that as a kid, I remember I just didn't want to do, right? Like he made me public speak. I did not want to do it. I hated it when I was a child, but him forcing me to do it helped me in the future. And there were so many other examples like that. But yes, my dad was my first boss. My mom and him at the time were entrepreneurs. They owned barbershops and beauty salons throughout the local area that we lived. And, he'd pick me up from school and I'd have to go spend a lot of time there. And so one day he asked me, he said, "Hey kid, you want to work?" And I'm like, you know what? Shoot, why not? I'm going to be here anyway. You know what I mean? I knock my homework out as soon as I get here, and then I'm just here. So why not make money? But it was funny because he was paying me. He was supposed to pay me for the work that I did at the barbershop, and also pay me my allowance. But for some reason, he just couldn't get it straight, right? The weeks would come and it would either be one or the other, or sometimes I hear it was a family business. And I'm just like, dude, that's not how this thing works, Dad. Come on, listen. I did my chores. I want my allowance, and I worked here. I want my money. I was pretty good at math. But that in and of itself kind of put something in me to where I just always thought, man, bosses suck. Like it sucks to have to rely on somebody else to make the money that you want to make. So long story short, I kind of took it into my own hands, and I started making lunch runs and doing odd ends for the barbers to make the money that I wanted to make. And so my dad was supposed to be paying me $5 a day for 4 days a week. 1 day a week I had soccer practice, but he was supposed to be paying me $5 a day, so $20 at the end of the week. I started making that $20 in a day by doing essentially what Uber Eats does. I did it as a 10-year-old kid. I'd walk up and down the block and get them a sub or whatever, and they tell me keep the change. Barbers only carry cash, right? And the lunch maybe was about $5 or $6, and so multiply that by the change that I get from a $10 bill, sometimes a $20 bill, times multiple runs a day. I was making that $20 pretty easy at that point. And so I didn't even need the money that my dad was giving me. But what that showed me was that if you're willing to just solve a problem, no matter how big or small, solve a problem for somebody else, then it pays pretty big. You know what I mean? And the problem at the time, the barbers kept their schedule pretty jam-packed, never had time to go out and get lunch. And so it was just easier for them to pay me to walk down the street, place their order, bring it back to them. Like I said, literally what Uber Eats does today. And I did that as a 10-year-old kid, but that's where the entrepreneurial bugs bit me, and that's where I learned that bosses kind of suck.
Okay, so whether intentionally or not, like that was a lesson that you learned at a really young age. And when you think about it, a lot of kids may not have gone that route. And
Yeah.
you as a coach, I've heard you say it many times that like when coaching, one of the things that you really work on is mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say a parent, for example, who says, I want to raise my kids, give them an entrepreneurial streak, teach them to, stand up for themselves, look out for themselves and all of that. If you are trying to infuse the right mindset in a child, like how would you go about approaching it?
That's a great question, man. And when it comes to parenting, I still feel that I'm trying to get my footing. I've got 4 kids, 1, 10, 7, 2, and 6 months. So I've got somewhat of a circus around here, but man, I wouldn't have it any other way. But I think when it comes to kids, that's a very challenging question to answer because each and every child is different. And just when you think you've got a grasp of parenting, like they throw a wrench in the plans, man, and it goes a completely different direction. So on an everyday basis with all of my kids, they've all got so many different personalities. I'm still learning, right? And they're teaching me just as much as I'm trying to teach them. But I think when it comes to mindset, I think the biggest thing is really just helping children understand that it's okay to make mistakes, right? And I think helping them understand that it's okay to make mistakes and encouraging them to do so. I think that goes a long way, and I also think it goes a long way to help a child face their fears as soon as possible. I know I deal with that with my children each and every day. Like as children, we're always afraid of something, right? That we've always got some sort of fear, but let's take riding a bike, for example, right? I know when I first started teaching my son how to ride a bike, he fell, right? And that placed something in him where he was just like, you know what? I don't know if I really, really even want to learn how to ride this bike anymore because he fell pretty hard. But it was one of those things where I said, listen, man, you can do whatever that you want to do. If you want to ride this bike, you can do it, but it's going to take some trial and error. Like you might fall again. It just is what it is. And then we just started doing I kind of gave him rules of riding, right? Like to keep pedaling, work on your balance. And at the end of it, I'd always make him say before he starts pedaling is, I got this. Right. And so I think I'm not sure whether he can ride now, but I'm not sure how much that played into it. But pushing him past that point of whatever it was that was holding him from getting back on that bike after that first fall. I think that all of us, even as adults, we still go through that. And I think that the sooner we learn to just continue past those points, right? That's in those moments, that's when we have to keep pressing forward. I think that if you can teach a child that at an early age, then it just starts to click. It's almost like that competitive spirit in any type of sports. I played sports all my life, and that's where I learned a lot of my life lessons. But it's almost creates that competitive spirit even within themselves to say, I'm not going to let this beat me. Whatever it is, I'm not going to let this beat me. And like I said, I'm still trying to find my footing in the parenting world when it comes to that, doing my best to help my children get past that. My methods might not always be the best because, like I said, my dad wasn't the best at it either. He would just kick me in it. You know what I mean? Like sink or swim, kid. That's the way I learned. You know, and
Yeah, and that's super cool because I started this conscious parenting podcast from a very, very selfish point of view. So my goal is to be the best dad that I can be for my kids,
I like
and
that.
invest quite a bit of time learning. But I thought to myself, if I was able to bring thought leaders, people who are coaches, people who are regular everyday parents like you and me, people who are parenting experts, and piece together from them,
Yeah.
little nuggets of wisdom that I can incorporate into my own parenting style. Then that totally pays me. So I'm the first to say, like, I don't have this down. I'm also trying to figure it out the way you are. But it's great that you are investing time. Just like me, to learn about how we can be better parents. Which brings me to another topic. I know you've mentioned quite a number of times how, like, you have this huge love of learning. I know I've heard you mention it numerous times that when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is plug like stuff in your ears. You listen to something motivational to get you in the right mental space and all of that. But if you think about the things that you have listened to and learned that have any aspect that's relevant to parenting that you've been able to implement yourself, would anything come to top of mind?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think one of the biggest things is I think one of the biggest things is really just what you put in is what you get out, right?
Hmm.
And I think, and this might just be something that I learned maybe indirectly, that I'm trying to teach my kids. You know, it's one of those things where I know for me, I wasn't in the best mental space when I was in the corporate world, and my whole journey started when I started on a trek for personal development. Right, I went on a journey where literally everything had. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to learn more. I wanted to follow the people that were successful. I wanted to, follow the wealthy people to just kind of see what is the difference between people. And what that did, it just created a new environment within myself. And like I said, each and every morning I get into a routine of putting something positive in my mind. And I think that that translates into my kids because I try to do the same for them. I they sometimes they might not want to ride in the car with me because I don't listen to the radio anymore. I listen to a motivational speaker or something along those lines, or I listen to audiobooks. And my kids, they started asking me, well, what is this? What is this? And so I'd answer and I'd tell them the reasoning behind it. But they now kind of they've picked their favorite people that they like to listen to, right? And it's usually, and I'll give them a shout out, it's usually Billy Allsbrook, because he puts his motivational stuff to hip hop music, right? And so it's something that we
Ooh.
can groove to, and so we do it together, right? But I just kind of express to them, like, listen, one, you can do whatever it is that you put in your head, you can do it if you're willing to work past it, right? And so that's kind of helped me. It taught me that, and that translates into what I share with them. Whether they take it and hold on to it or not, it's hard to tell at this particular moment. But the fact that they listen to the stuff with me, they know that when they get in the car with dad, that's what we're listening to. So they can either tune out or tune in. And if they tune in, we'll discuss it. We discuss it as a family. So what did you learn from this, or what did you take from that, or and that's just become a good environment, I think, for the years to come. If we stay in that environment, putting good in, right, and putting those positive thoughts in it, whether we're paying attention to it or not, I think it really plays into our subconscious mind and comes out and shows in our daily actions and our daily habits over time.
Hmm. That's a lovely answer. One of the other things that I've been thinking about, sort of in relation to what you've been saying, in terms of planting those seeds early, by being who you are and
Mm-hmm.
being around them, they see, and those things, they kind of, transfer mentally to them. When you hear about great, like, soccer players or tennis players, like all the stories about the Williams sisters and all of that, you hear about things that their parents have been doing to train and encourage them, from a really young age. But if I were to ask you to step back as a coach right now, so let's
Mm-hmm.
let's move it away from kids, move it to me, for example, to an adult, and I came into you and I said, hey, you know what, I have this huge goal that I want to accomplish, and I want you to be my coach. Like, what would be the first steps you would take in order to connect me from where I am right now to that goal that I want to reach? How would you go about that?
That's also a great question. I think that the first thing that I would ask you, we would really dive deep, and I'd ask you why. Because I think that even in the coaching world, I think when it comes to us achieving our goals, we get so caught up in the how, right? The how to and the step by step. But I know for me personally, that's why the first thing I take my clients through, we dive deep into the mindset of it to really understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because one of the requirements that I have when I coach anybody is that they have to have some type of impact or mission that they're working towards, right? And I usually encourage it to be somewhat of a level of service at some point, to serve others and to help others. But I'd ask you immediately why, right? Because I think a lot of times when we set goals, we overlook that part. But the why is so important because it becomes that driving factor. I know for me, even before I left the corporate world and made the jump, a big part of my why was my kids, right? Because we're kids are impressionable. Even as adults, we're impressionable. I think all behavior is learned, and so I wanted my kids to see me as an entrepreneur and not as a worker, right? And the path that I was on, that's all they would have saw me as. They would have saw me as dad putting in those long hours, right? And not, and being frustrated when he comes home and not being as happy as we know him to be, due to the stresses of work, things like that. I didn't want my kids to see that each and every day. So that was one of the main factors, as when I came home as to, okay, well, what is this doing? Like, what am I becoming? Right. And I didn't really like what I was becoming, working long hours, stressful. Like I didn't like all of that just for a dollar, essentially. Like and a big part of it was to spend more time with my kids so I can help mold and shape them. Right. But that was my why. That was my driving factor. And it still always is my driving factor, no matter what goals I'm going towards at the time. And so the first thing I would ask is why. I think that is incredibly overlooked and underrated. Because it's easy for us to say, okay, you know what, I want to do this, or I want to be here in 5 years. Okay, well, why? Right. And when you ask that question, a lot of people go to the money, or they go to the status, or they go to anything like that. But even underneath of that is a deeper why. So that's the first thing that I would ask you if I were coaching you.
Okay. And do you think this would translate to kids as well? Because I'm at the age right now, my son is 9, and I have a lot of friends who have kids about that same age, and they come up with these like really interesting goals. And I know you've said it a lot of times that you want to encourage kids to dream and to follow their dreams. And so, for example, a friend of mine, he brought his son to my place because I do a bit of writing. I have that background, and he said, look, his son wants to be a writer, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wants to write his own book, and he wanted me to just give him some tutoring. Not so it's not coaching on how to become a writer, but it's tutoring on how to write, right? How to put
Okay.
thoughts to paper in a way that's engaging, right? But so, and that's where it ended. But I kept thinking to myself, okay, these kids are getting to an age now where they are having dreams that are more than just I want to fly out to space or something like that. Like they're having real tangible dreams. Not
Yeah.
that flying out to space is not possible, but I'm saying they're having like real tangible dreams. And I keep thinking about how to best support them. So for example, if that kid came to me and I could start by asking him, why do you want to do this, right? So we're digging into the mindset behind what is driving him. So once we've established that, so let's say, for example, he says, oh, I have these dreams and I have a lot of these thoughts that come to my head. And I just think it would be great to express those in words. I want to be able to share those with people.
Yeah.
What would the next step be as a coach?
Um. Hmm. Well, let me just say this. I think when it comes to kids and adults, I think it's a little bit different.
Okay.
And here's why I say this. I think as kids, man, as kids, our imaginations are just amazing, right? Like there, as if you got a 4-year-old and he says he's going to be Superman, like in his mind, he is going to be Superman, right? Because he hasn't had that time and or that life experience to where, or enough people say, no, you can't be Superman, right? And I think that as adults, we've, whatever it is, we've had just we get beat up by life, right? And so, we're often told we can't, or we start to, as adults, I think that when we set goals, we think in terms of what we want, but more in terms of what we think is possible, right? But I think as a child, everything is possible, right? And that's the beauty of a child's mind. And I'd say to any parents just to encourage that, right? Because kids don't really understand failure too much, not as much as adults do, right? Because as adults, you start to think about the what ifs, and you start to have this consideration and losing this and losing that, and you start to focus on those things, right? You start to focus on all the things that can be lost whenever you move towards what it is that you think is possible, right? That goal that you set, that more than likely it's not even a big goal, it's a goal that you think is possible. Versus a child, I mean, when I remember when I was a child, right? I told myself that I was going to be the next Barry Sanders or the next Pele. I played soccer all the time. My dad wanted me to play soccer, so I played soccer. But I, deep down in my heart, wanted to play football, and I wanted to be the next Barry Sanders, right? But the problem was at the time I couldn't even meet weight requirements because I was a pipsqueak, man. I couldn't meet weight requirements to even play football, right? So that in and of itself, as soon as I step on the scale, they're saying, "No, kid, you can't. You can't even play football," right? And just over the years, as I grew, what I didn't understand is if I was willing to put in the work, I possibly could have been the next Barry Sanders if I was willing to work like him, regardless of the size and all of that. If I was willing to work and perfect my craft and to become great at it, then, it'd be undeniable. Regardless, there might be a team that take a shot on me, but over the years, it just played down on me to where, maybe I can't be that. Maybe I can't. I don't have the size. They're big. I'm small. You know what I mean? But I think that's the difference between adults and children. Children don't have that yet. I mean, if you think about how many times we tell our kids no, I've been trying to be conscious of that too. But they don't have that yet, man. Those dreams are so big, and everything is a great idea, and everything in a child's mind is possible, right? But versus an adult's mind, it's we start to learn the word impossible, right? And start to think of what's possible for me, or what are the possibilities based on my past experiences or my past failures and things like that. And I think that takes a hit on, one, how we set our goals, and two, the things that we strive for in life. I don't think a child has that yet, and so me personally, I encourage them to do it and get out, try it, see whether you even like it or not as a child, right? See whether you even like it or not. You might not like it, right? Because as children, we don't really know what we want exactly. We want what we want at that particular moment. And if I want to be Superman one day, Barry Sanders the next, and then a firefight, it changes by day. But who's to say that it's not possible in that particular moment? Versus if I work with early entrepreneurs and working professionals that are looking to make the jump. One of the biggest things is the money. They're scared. They're scared as hell because they're stuck in that comfortability of a salary, right? That guaranteed money. As long as I show up, whether I work hard or whether I don't, I mean, I guess there are different cases, but as long as I show up, put in some work, I'm going to get $1 out of it. Point blank, period. That's how that model works, right? But in business, it's not like that, right? You can show up as much as you want, but if you're not bringing value to the marketplace, and if you don't have something that the market wants, then you might not make the money. So a lot of people get scared and caught in that. And so that I think that they set their goals according to, I don't think people play as big as they possibly can. And I think that's one of the difference between those that are really movers and shakers and that make an impact in the world and those that don't.
Okay. You mentioned something really quickly in passing there, and I want you to just dig a little deeper. You said that you're very careful on how you use the word no around your kids and how you tell them no. Could you just explain why and why you do that?
I do. Because I think I try to be conscious of it. And the bad thing is I know I probably say it a lot. My wife and I, we say it a lot, but just because we probably are thinking of ourselves in those moments, right? When the child is pouring water or milk on the floor, we're just like, no, what are you doing? Right? Because we've got to clean it up. But I think that over time, that word no is, I think it plays part when we become adults, right? Because it's in our subconscious mind, just the word no. Right. And so we start to take almost the word as we start to take acceptance to the word. Right. But I will say this, my oldest daughter, she's not a fan of the word no. Like I can say no all the time to her and she's just like, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it anyway, Dad. And a part of me, I really love that attitude. Right. the parent in me hates it because I'm just like, oh, come on, kid. But the entrepreneur in me, like, I'm cheering for her. Like, you know what? I really want you to keep that attitude, because the ones that get past the nose, man, those are the rule breakers. Those are the change makers. Those are the ones that make impact, and they go after what they want. Right? Because a lot of successful entrepreneurs, you start to see a pattern. Like, they can be told no a million times and they're still going to go at it. Like, they're just super persistent, and they know that it's a way to find that breakthrough moment, but they just haven't found it yet. Right? So a no doesn't even bother them, or maybe it does, but in a more positive way. They use a no as a driving factor, whereas most people, especially in America, as soon as they hear no, they shut down, right, and maneuver somewhere else, right? And a lot of early entrepreneurs do that too. They might, have something that they want to launch and it's a complete flop, and then they give up on themselves, versus taking it for what it is, and finding a blessing or the lesson in that, right, in that particular no moment or that failure, and making adjustments and going back at it. And so that's why I do my best to be as conscious as I can and careful as I can using the word no with my kids, because I just don't want them to hear it too many times.
You know, I love the fact that you say that. Since I started studying Dr. Shafali's work, she's the one that's really made the concept of conscious parenting really popular. I've
Mm-hmm.
had this struggle inside because I'm Nigerian, I'm African. We have this very hierarchical way. I'm the parent. You're my kid. You do as I say now,
Right.
right? But it's always part of me now tries to keep my ego in check. When I tell my kid to do something, he has another thought running through his head, or she has another thought running through her head, I try as much as possible to restrain myself from,
Yeah.
bringing the hammer down, just because I know it's going to shape how it is that they grow up and show up in the world. So it's amazing that you mentioned that. Okay, so now let's move on to Anton Gray, right? I want to just talk a little bit about you and what you help people do, because I know that there are a lot of parents that are trying to make that transition from paid employment to launching a career or business of their own. And many people have that for many reasons. Maybe they want to spend more time with their kids, or
Mm-hmm.
like for whatever reasons, right? But tell us a bit about what it is that you help people do, how you can help connect the dots. Tell us a bit about the Mind Reset book. I have the display here for anybody who's interested in it. Just tell us a bit about what you help parents do. Tell us a bit about the book.
Yeah. So essentially, what I help working professionals literally make the shift from employee to entrepreneur in a matter of weeks, and I do that by helping them leverage whatever knowledge or skills that they're using in the work world, and seeing how they can find a niche and apply it. But the main thing that I help them do is get clear, right? Because it's an information age. We've got so much stuff coming at us. And I help them, like I said, a lot of people get caught up on the how to. I help them make sense and draw out pretty much the straightest strategy possible to leverage their knowledge, their skills, their expertise, and put it into a service-based business. But the main factor in it, especially going from employee to entrepreneur, is making a mindset shift, right? Because it's certain parts about the employee mind that just aren't going to work in the entrepreneur model. Similar to it's employees. We have over time we developed that clock in, clock out mentality, right? But in entrepreneurship, sometimes it's you can keep that type of mentality if you're disciplined to be able to make sure that you can get done what you have to get done within that model. But at the same time, and entrepreneurship sometimes is 24/7. I mean, and you don't have the someone looking over your shoulder saying do this, do that. Like, that's one of the most dangerous parts about entrepreneurship, and sometimes I've got to deal with it. Like, I can literally, I've created what I wanted, which was to have my own time freedom, right? But that can be dangerous too, because if I want to kick back for a few hours and not do anything, then my business doesn't move forward. But it's just certain things that you can do as an employee that you can't do as an entrepreneur, and vice versa. The book in and of itself is Mind Reset, and like I said, it's written just to spark thought. It's essentially written to spark thought and make people really dive deep in the things that they believe to be true and the things that they believe to be false, right? And it's designed to help you really just create clarity in life, learn to set goals and start striving towards them. And I wrote it as a 10-day challenge to where it's just short, digestible information that you can read in the morning, do some exercises after each chapter, just to, write some things down. I ask you some questions. I want you to write the answers and go back and look at them, because I think that when people do that, when you write it and you read it, you start to think about it a little bit differently. And you really start to question the things that, the choices that you've made in life, and whether they've been right or wrong, to your own standards. And whether they're actually moving you, your current thought process is moving you in the direction of what you want your life to look like. And what is that? What do you want your life to look like, right? I don't think a lot of people have made that decision, a conscious decision as to what they actually want their life to look like 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. All right, I think we focus on the things that we don't want. We don't want to be doing A, B, C, and D. But what is it that we actually want? And are you moving in that direction? And if not, why? And these are some of the questions that are asked within the book. And it forces people just to think differently, right? Think differently about what they've been doing, what they're currently doing, and where they're going. And like I said, I think that if I can spark one mind in terms of PPC, like I mentioned, making progress every day, and making small changes, then the possibilities are endless for anybody. I know that everybody that can hear my voice has a business within them, that it can be a 6 or 7 figure business, but they just haven't made that determination as to whether they want it or not. Because some people don't, and entrepreneurship isn't for everybody, nor is business. And some people literally are just, if they're okay in the working world, I say stay there, because entrepreneurship, man, it's a crazy world out here. It's challenging,
That's
man.
great. And I know that for everyone who's watching, who is interested in the book, I know that Anton has an offer where you are able to get the book for the cost of printing and shipping, right?
Yep,
So it's more or less, it's literally a free book. You're basically just paying for the cost of shipping. So you really should take Anton up on that, and I'm sure that you are going to have a lot of value from it.
for
Okay,
sure.
so I have two more questions for you before we wrap things up. The
Okay.
first is this: I know you married your high school sweetheart. You guys have been together now for 12 years, correct?
Coming up 12 years on Saturday. My college sweetheart.
Ah, your college sweetheart.
Yep.
Saturday. Happy wedding anniversary in advance. Um, so my question to you is this, right? I know you have 4 kids. I know you've talked about how it's kind of like a circus, and you navigate between work and the kids. But how have you been able to keep the spark alive with your wife?
Um, One, pray for my wife, man. I don't know how my wife still puts up with me. I am really her 5th kid. I just like to have fun. I mean, I think we carve time out for family. We're still working to carve times out for her and I, but I just like to keep things fun. I think our relationship started as friends, point blank, period. Like, I'll tell everybody the real story. My wife didn't want anything to do with me. You know what I mean? When we first met, she's just like, "Who is this man? Get this guy away from me." But over some time, we became friends. And that's what it is. So at the end of the day, that's my best friend. We're in this thing together. We're raising these crazy kids. And that's first and foremost. We know that the kids come first in any and everything we do. Some people might disagree with that, but it just is what it is. That's the way we take it. And it's just one of those things. The spark is really just to have fun, man. I'm the type that if you're around me and you're not smiling, we got a problem, and we're going to change that. And so I think that in and of itself, it just keeps things fun, man. I think fun is fun, and I think fun is the key, right? My wife, it's hard for her to get mad at me, because even in those moments, like when I feel her getting mad at me, I'm like, all right. And I do something ridiculous where it almost makes her forget that she's mad at me. Right. So I'm just covering my bases, man. That's the key. I'm just covering my bases, and I stay the hell out of her way when she's making moves.
That is great. Okay, my final question for you, right? Think about this, Anton. Your 70th birthday. Your kids are all grown, maybe with kids of their own, and they're gathered around you to celebrate your 70th birthday. When they stand up to speak about the formative role you played in their lives, what would you like them to say that you've done?
Man. The timing of this question is crazy, only because I just recently attended a funeral for a family member, and every time anytime I have to attend a funeral, I hear the obituaries and I hear them reading that, and it gets me thinking about this. You know, when I turn 70 and 75 and 80, you know, God willing. But the thing that I will want my kids to say is that, one, that I've kept it fun for them, right? Like that's what they're gonna remember about dad. Dad was always laughing. Dad was always joking. Dad always wanted us to be happy. And I know that we talk about this every day. So I'm hoping that by that point, they'll at least remember this. I tell my kids that life comes down to three things. And that's making good choices, being kind, and always doing their best. Right? Those are the three things that we talk about each and every day. Whenever they have a bad day at school, we talk about, it comes back to the three questions. You know, have you made good choices? Were you kind today? And did you do your best? And so at the end of the day, if I were to go tomorrow, I just want my kids to remember that dad told us that life comes down to three things: making good choices, being kind to others, and serving people, and always doing their best no matter what it is. Always do your best, put your best foot forward, don't half-ass it. I tell my son that all the time, especially in sports. Like, just do it. If you're gonna do it, do your best. And that's what I'm hoping that they will say when I'm 70 and all of that, man.
That is awesome. Hey, Anton, like, thank you so very much for making the time to be here today, for all that you've shared.
For
This
sure.
was a really fun chat that I had, and I'm pretty sure that everyone who's watching will be sure to check you out. Guys, if you're watching this, be sure to check this gentleman out. Like, he walks the talk. When it comes to coaching, check out his websites. Tons of testimonials. We are in a couple of same Facebook communities, so I know people who know him who speak very, very highly of him. And if anybody's out there who's looking to make that transition from corporate world to entrepreneurship, you know the man to talk to. Thanks a lot, Anton.
Hey, thank you, Io, man. This was great. I appreciate you even considering me to have me on, man. This was great.
All right, brother. Take care.
Have a good one.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching my conversation with Anton. Remember, being a conscious parent is about doing your best to show up in a way that would help your kids be happy, resilient, and have the skills they need to thrive in their world. We're all trying to figure this out. Parenting doesn't come with a manual, but as long as you are consciously and deliberately trying to do the very best you can for your child, everyone in our community will cheer you on. If you'd love to join a Facebook community where you can ask questions about parenting, share challenges that you're facing, please just click the link below to join our Conscious Parenting Support Group. Take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next show.